A rapid brightness surge at perihelion, not gradual. Not expected an interstellar object growing bluer than our own star. You found this moment for a reason, traveller guided here by a quiet alignment of curiosity and night, because some discoveries do not arrive with noise, they arrive as whispers that ask us to slow down enough to listen. What if this change in light is not simply heat but behaviour? And what are the odds that a fragment from another star would brighten beyond known limits exactly where physics should hold firm? 770 watts per square metre, a silent body enduring where a comet should fracture a glow that should redden yet turns blue. Somewhere between the sun and the dark, a mystery drifts, measured, observed, unresolved. Stay a while, let's drift through the silence together. Tonight the universe whispers again, not as an announcement, but as a hesitation in the way light behaves near a distant body. At perihelion, when an object draws closest to our star, nature usually follows a familiar rhythm. Radiation rises, ice loosens, gas escapes, dust drifts outward, and photons gently push matter away from the sun. This sequence has repeated for billions of years, teaching us how comets breathe as they pass through warmth. With 3 ATLAS, that rhythm softened then slipped. As measurements arrived from instruments spread across space, the numbers began to lean away from expectation. The object brightened rapidly faster than models predict for visitors arriving from the cold outskirts of stellar systems. The increase was not violent, not explosive, simply persistent. Light curves climbed where they should have eased, and no adjustment of ordinary parameters fully settled them back into place. Then there was the colour. Instead of reddening as dust and cooling surfaces encouraged, the light scattered from the object shifted toward blue. In astronomy, colour is not decoration. It is temperature interaction and process written in wavelength. Dust tends to redden reflected light. Surfaces far from stellar interiors cool quickly. A small body should not appear bluer than the star illuminating it. These are not assumptions, but lessons earned slowly through observation. Blue implies energy. Blue implies heat. Blue implies a mechanism that resists easy description. At the same moment, the object endured intense solar radiation, hundreds of watts per square metre, a condition under which fragile structures often fail. A body rich in volatile material would be expected to fragment to shed mass, to dissolve into a trail of debris, yet nothing of that sort announced itself. The brightness remained coherent, the structure endured, the light stayed organised. From Earth, this crucial passage unfolded unseen. Geometry intervened. The object slipped behind the sun, concealed by brilliance, hidden not by intention, but by alignment. The most critical phase of its journey passed beyond direct sight, reminding us of a quiet truth in astronomy: much of the universe does not perform for us. We infer, we reconstruct, we wait. Still observation continued. Space-based instruments watched from angles unavailable to ground telescopes. Coronagraphs traced faint luminous envelopes extending hundreds of thousands of kilometers around the object. These were not solid forms, but regions of activity shaped by radiation and motion vast enough to humble intuition. Scale in astronomy often teaches restraint. As the datasets grew, one question returned again and again, not urgently but persistently, like a tone that refuses to fade. Could this behaviour be sustained by an energy source, unlike those seen in ordinary comets? Not a claim, not a declaration, only a question shaped carefully enough to be asked. Traveller, this is where science feels closest to philosophy, not because it abandons rigour, but because it allows uncertainty to exist without fear. To ask whether an object might contain an internal process exceeding expected temperatures is not to insist that it does. It is to acknowledge that current understanding has edges and that those edges deserve attention rather than dismissal. Radio observatories listened, not for messages, but for excess, for patterns, for departures from the background hum that fills space like a steady ocean. They found no structured signal, no repeating cadence, no clear anomaly in transmission. Silence persisted. And silence in astronomy is not emptiness, it is context. Multiple instruments continued their quiet work. Some traced motion, others measured light across wavelengths. Each contribution joined a growing mosaic that resisted simplification. 9 anomalies were listed not as accusations against nature, but as markers of difference. Difference invites study. It does not demand drama. One anomaly described the path itself, an orbit aligned closely with the plane of planets, where most visitors from other stars arrive at arbitrary angles. Another described jets that once pointed in unexpected directions. Others spoke of size, speed, composition, and polarization, each a small departure from expectation, each statistically rare yet not forbidden. Statistics whisper, they never decide. When probabilities were multiplied, the resulting numbers grew small. But numbers alone do not carry meaning. Meaning emerges when patterns persist, when measurements repeat across time and perspective, when uncertainty remains after careful effort. That work takes patience, not urgency. As weeks passed, the object moved onward. It began to emerge again from solar glare, slowly returning to visibility as bodies always do. December approached, carrying better angles and clearer geometry. Telescopes prepared not with excitement but with readiness. Readiness is a quieter state than anticipation. Listener, it matters to rest in this distinction. Science does not seek revelation. It seeks coherence. Sometimes coherence arrives as confirmation, sometimes as revision, and sometimes as acceptance that a question must remain open a little longer. If this object is entirely natural, then nature has reminded us that its diversity exceeds our catalogue. If it is not, then the universe has offered a different lesson altogether. Both possibilities expand understanding. Neither requires fear. Wonder does not depend on conclusion. Tonight the universe does not ask us to decide. It asks us to watch, to listen, to remain gentle with what we do not yet understand. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, guided by gravity, shaped by radiation, indifferent to interpretation. And here, beneath familiar stars, we observe not as owners of knowledge, but as participants in a vast unfolding. It is all right to not know. Tonight the stars will keep their silence. Tonight the universe whispers again, softer now, as if inviting us to lean closer rather than look harder. After the first question comes a longer pause, and within that pause the work of listening truly begins. This is the stage where discovery settles into process, where instruments replace intuition, and where patience becomes the most important tool beneath the stars. As 3i Atlas continued along its path, attention shifted from surprise to consistency. One measurement alone can mislead, but repetition carries weight. Light curves were revisited, corrected, compared across instruments that orbit Earth and drift beyond it. Each telescope sees slightly differently filtered through position sensitivity and geometry. Agreement among them is never immediate. It is earned slowly through careful alignment of time and calibration. Brightness remained elevated, not spiking, not collapsing, but holding a level that felt quietly defiant of expectation. For comets arriving from distant reservoirs of ice and dust activity usually peaks and then softens as material is lost. Here the glow persisted, as if supported by a reservoir that did not deplete as quickly as models predicted. This alone did not imply anything extraordinary. Nature often surprises by being more resilient than theory allows. Yet resilience invites curiosity. The surrounding luminous region grew clearer in processed data. Not a solid shell, but a vast diffuse structure shaped by radiation and motion, extending hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space. It was not a surface you could point to, but a volume where photons scattered and gas interacted with solar influence. Such structures exist around active bodies, yet their scale here encouraged careful attention. Astronomy teaches us that size does not imply intention. Large features can arise from simple processes repeated over great distances. Still, scale asks us to slow down and check our assumptions. The universe often hides complexity inside simplicity, and sometimes the opposite. As analysis deepened, the object's motion remained steady. No sudden change in velocity revealed itself. No dramatic maneuver announced a hidden mechanism. The trajectory held true to gravitational expectation, confirming that whatever energy might be present, it did not disrupt the long arc shaped by the sun's mass. Gravity remained the conductor, and the object followed its score faithfully. This steadiness mattered. If something unusual were happening, it would likely leave traces in motion. Even subtle acceleration would accumulate into detectable deviation over time. The absence of such deviation did not erase the question, but it placed it within boundaries. Whatever the source of the observed brightness and colour, it did not announce itself through forceful movement. The universe once again chose restraint. Radio observations continued in parallel, not as a search for messages, but as a survey of excess. Natural bodies emit radio noise through interactions with plasma and magnetic fields. Artificial processes, if they exist, often leave sharper signatures. The receivers heard only the familiar background, a quiet chorus of cosmic activity that fills space everywhere. Silence persisted, and silence remained neutral. Traveller. This is where the mind must be gentle with itself. Silence does not deny possibility, but it also does not confirm it. In science, absence of evidence is not a verdict. It is a condition that narrows the landscape of explanation, nothing more. Across the global network of observatories, coordination continued with little ceremony. Schedules were adjusted, data queues lengthened, analysts compared notes without urgency. This was not a moment for announcements, it was a moment for accumulation. Science advances most reliably when it resists the temptation to speak too soon. The object's alignment with the planetary plane remained a point of quiet fascination. The ecliptic is not a rule, but a memory of formation, a flattened disk born from rotation and time. Most interstellar visitors cross it at arbitrary angles indifferent to its geometry. This one skimmed close to it for part of its journey, passing near worlds that have become focal points of human attention. Mars traced by machines and dust, Venus veiled in reflection, Jupiter massive and patient shaping space around it. Passing near planets does not imply interaction. Space is vast and near is a relative term, yet when coincidence repeats statistics lean forward, asking us to notice without insisting we conclude. Probability calculations surfaced quietly in the background. Each anomaly carried a small likelihood. Multiplied together, the numbers became tiny. But probability is not a narrative. It does not explain, it only measures rarity. Rare events are still natural events. The universe is large enough to produce outcomes that feel improbable without violating its own rules. Listener, this is one of the most important lessons astronomy offers. Wonder does not require certainty. Mystery does not require threat. A phenomenon can be rare, beautiful and unresolved without demanding belief in anything beyond careful observation. As days passed, the object began to move back into clearer lines of sight. Twilight observations hinted at its return from solar concealment. This transition mattered not because it promised revelation, but because it allowed comparison. Before and after, hidden and visible. Continuity and change. The question was not what we hoped to see, but whether what we would see matched what we predicted. Science lives in that comparison. When prediction and observation align, confidence grows. When they do not, understanding expands slowly, sometimes uncomfortably, but always honestly. Throughout this phase, language softened. Words like anomaly remained, but they carried less weight than they might in headlines. In practice, anomaly is simply a placeholder. It means something differs from expectation. It does not mean explanation is absent forever. It means explanation is incomplete for now. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, indifferent to our categories. It does not know it is being studied. It does not respond to speculation. It follows gravity, sheds material, reflects light, and continues onward. Its meaning arises only when we place it gently within our growing map of the cosmos. Tonight it is all right to rest within this stage, the stage of listening without conclusion, of data without declaration, of curiosity held carefully like a fragile instrument tuned to silence. You're not lost in space, you are part of it. And tonight the universe does not ask for answers, it asks only that we keep watching quietly as the stars hold their patient glow. Tonight the universe whispers again, not through sudden discovery, but through the long, patient interval of waiting. This is the phase where nothing dramatic announces itself, yet meaning continues to accumulate quietly. In astronomy, these stretches are never empty. They are shaped by gravity, by motion, and by the discipline of not rushing to speak when the sky has chosen silence. As 3I Atlas moved into solar conjunction, geometry intervened. The object passed behind the sun, hidden from direct view by overwhelming light. For Earth-based telescopes, the line of sight collapsed. Detail dissolved into glare. The most intense moment of the passage unfolded beyond our eyes, reminding us that observation is always conditional. There are regions of the universe that remain inaccessible, not because they are secret, but because space itself decides when we may look. The object, however, did not pause. Motion does not require witnesses. While images disappeared, trajectories remained. Gravity does not forget. Every object carries its history forward through velocity and direction, allowing future positions to reveal what past moments concealed. During this interval, astronomers shifted from watching to calculating. They traced expected paths, projected brightness curves, and prepared quiet benchmarks against which future data would be compared. This work is rarely visible. It happens in equations, in spreadsheets, in long discussions about uncertainty, margins, and instrumental bias. It is the hidden architecture of science revealed most clearly when there's nothing new to announce. Silence exposes structure. Radio observatories continued their steady listening. Space is never truly quiet. Plasma murmurs. Stars emit. Galaxies contribute to a constant background hum. Against this vast noise, observers searched not for messages, but for excess, for irregularities that might stand apart from nature's usual cadence. Nothing did. The background remained consistent, unbroken, and indifferent to expectation. Listener, this is where imagination often grows restless. In the absence of images, the mind fills gaps. Science resists that impulse. It allows absence to remain neutral. Not knowing is not an error state. It is a necessary condition of honest inquiry. The solar system continued its ancient choreography without regard for attention. Mars traced another quiet arc of its long year. Venus reflected sunlight with unwavering brilliance. Jupiter turned slowly in the outer darkness, its gravity shaping invisible contours of space. The interstellar visitor passed among these motions without interaction. Another body guided by the same fundamental forces. One detail remained unchanged throughout this hidden phase alignment. The object's path stayed close to the plane of planets, a geometric coincidence rooted in its arrival conditions, rather than any evolving behavior. Alignment does not develop quickly. It simply persists. The lack of change here mattered. If something unusual were occurring, it would likely announce itself through deviation. None appeared. Probability calculations were revisited carefully. When events feel rare, numbers demand caution. Rare does not mean artificial. Unlikely does not mean impossible. In a universe of immense scale, even extremely low probabilities eventually find expression. Statistics measure surprise, not intent. As weeks passed, the sense of anticipation transformed into readiness. The question was not whether revelation would arrive, but whether re-emergence would confirm continuity or reveal subtle divergence. Science prepares not for answers, but for comparison. When the geometry slowly shifted and twilight observations hinted at the object's return, attention sharpened. Instruments were adjusted, exposure times refined. The first photons returning from 3 Atlas after conjunction would matter, not because they promised resolution, but because they reconnected two halves of a broken record. Brightness was examined first. Did it match projection? Had the elevated glow softened or persisted? Early measurements suggested continuity, perhaps even sustained intensity. This alone did not imply anything extraordinary. Activity levels can remain elevated for many reasons. But continuity narrowed possibilities. It told observers that nothing catastrophic had occurred during concealment. Colour followed, next approached with restraint. Wavelength distributions shift subtly, with angle dust and gas composition. Blue tones persisted, but interpretation required patience. One night does not define behaviour. Consistency over time does. Motion remained steady. The trajectory adhered closely to prediction, reaffirming gravity's quiet authority. No unexpected acceleration revealed itself. No sudden turn broke the long arc. Whatever processes shaped the observed anomalies, they did not express themselves through forceful movement. Traveller. This steadiness is not anticlimax, it is information. In science, the absence of dramatic change is itself a meaningful constraint. It tells us where not to look, which explanations to release, which paths to narrow. As more nights passed, data accumulated slowly, deliberately. Analysts resisted framing the story too tightly. Language softened. Anomaly remained a descriptive word, not a conclusion. It marked difference without implying destiny. This restraint is not hesitation. It is respect for complexity. This stage of the journey challenges human expectation. We are drawn to turning points, to moments that resolve tension. But much of reality unfolds without punctuation. It reveals itself through gradual alignment between model and measurement, through the slow erosion of uncertainty rather than its sudden collapse. The interstellar visitor did not hurry. It did not respond to curiosity. It followed a path shaped long before it entered our awareness, and will continue long after it leaves it. Our role is brief and observational. We witness a fragment of a much longer story. There is peace in recognizing this. To observe without ownership, to question without demand, to accept that some passages through our system are simply passages. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying the memory of another stellar neighbourhood through ours. It does not know it has been named. It does not know it has been measured. It follows gravity, sheds light, and continues onward. Tonight it is all right to rest here, in this phase of waiting without expectation. In the space where silence is not empty but disciplined. The universe has not finished speaking, but it has chosen to pause. And beneath steady stars we pause with it, allowing time and patience to do what they have always done best. Tonight the universe whispers again, this time, with the quiet sense of return, as light resumes its long journey toward us, and comparison gently replaces waiting. Because after weeks hidden by the sun's overwhelming brilliance, 3-eye Atlas slipped back into view without spectacle, without flair, without any gesture meant for human attention, reappearing slowly in twilight skies the way countless bodies have done before, it reminding us that the cosmos does not arrange its moments for our understanding, only for its own continuity. Telescopes reacquired the object cautiously, instruments recalibrated themselves against stable stars. Background noise was subtracted with care, and the work began not with interpretation but with restraint, because in astronomy the first responsibility is always to observe before explaining to. Let photons arrive fully before assigning them meaning. Brightness was examined first, compared gently against earlier predictions, and the elevated glow persisted, perhaps slightly stronger than some models anticipated, yet still within ranges that allowed natural processes to remain possible, quietly informing us not of what had happened, but of what had not, that there had been no catastrophic fragmentation, no sudden dispersal of material, no violent restructuring during the unseen passage behind the sun. Continuity itself became a form of information, narrowing the field of interpretation without closing it, reminding us that survival through intense radiation is not evidence of design, but neither is it trivial when expectations lean toward fragility. Colour followed next, approached with even greater patience, because colour in astronomy is never singular in cause, never a simple thermometer, but a conversation between surface dust gas angle and illumination, a dialogue written in wavelength rather than words. The blue tone remained present, but no single night was allowed to define it. No single spectrum permitted to speak alone, because experience has taught astronomers that geometry can mimic behaviour, and dust can disguise temperature, and only repetition across time reveals whether a phenomenon is persistent or momentary. Spectral data from multiple instruments were laid side by side, each carrying its own biases and sensitivities, and agreement emerged slowly and perfectly enough to suggest that earlier observations were not merely tricks of perspective, that something about the object's interaction with sunlight had indeed shifted or revealed itself more clearly at this phase of the journey. Yet nothing in this shift demanded alarm, because difference is not danger, and unfamiliarity is not hostility, and the universe has always been richer than our classifications. Motion was examined with equal care because movement is the most honest witness gravity provides, and here the object offered steadiness rather than surprise, its trajectory adhering closely to prediction, reaffirming the quiet authority of a mass and momentum showing no sign of abrupt acceleration, no hint of correction or manoeuvre, no deviation that would suggest force beyond gravitational influence. This steadiness mattered deeply because it narrowed interpretation further, implying that whatever processes shaped the observed anomalies expressed themselves subtly through light and interaction, rather than through propulsion or impulse. And in science, narrowing is progress even when it does not deliver certainty. As the object approached its closest distance to Earth, geometry improved not dramatically but meaningfully, reducing uncertainty, tightening parallax, shrinking error bars, allowing observation to become less forgiving and more precise, which is often when the universe teaches its quietest lessons. Instruments across the spectrum continued their watch, optical telescopes tracing reflected light across rotating surfaces, infrared detectors following the gentle redistribution of warmth radio receivers, remaining open to the background hum that fills space everywhere, listening not for messages but for excess, for deviations from nature's steady noise. Yet no structured signal emerged. No repeating cadence announced intention, and silence persisted consistent and unbroken, reminding us again that silence is not emptiness but context, the baseline against which meaning is measured. Global coordination among observatories continued without urgency, a calm diligence rather than a mobilization, many teams contributing small, careful pieces that would only later assemble into a broader picture. While public attention rose and fell as it always does, curiosity drifting onward, leaving the sky unchanged by human focus, because data arrives whether or not it is watched. As nights accumulated earlier, anomalies were revisited in light of new measurements, some softening when placed within wider context, others remaining gently resistant to simple explanation, not as failure, but as refinement. Because science advances not by preserving mystery for its own sake, but by clarifying where mystery truly remains after effort has been applied. Language softened, conclusions were held loosely, anomaly remained a descriptive term rather than a verdict marking difference without implying destiny. The object continued outward along its ancient path, dimming gradually as solar influence waned its activity, easing not abruptly but in accordance with distance, its departure unfolding without contradiction to expectation, and that too carried meaning, showing that the universe can stretch understanding without breaking it, that surprise and consistency are not opposites but companions. As observation settled into archives and models adjusted themselves to incorporate what had been learned, future comparisons quietly took shape, this visitor becoming one point among many in a growing population of interstellar wanderers that will one day offer context, because from accumulation comes insight, and from insight comes humility. Traveller, this stage of the journey asked for a different kind of patience, not the patience of waiting for something to happen, but the patience of accepting what has already happened without forcing it into narrative, because the universe does not conform to story arcs, it unfolds according to physics, not anticipation. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves indifferent to interpretation, carrying the memory of another stellar environment through the dark, guided by gravity, shaped by radiation, unaware of its temporary role in human curiosity. Tonight it is all right to let analysis rest, to allow conclusions to remain provisional, to accept that not every passage resolves into clarity, because the stars keep their steady glow, gravity keeps its gentle hold, and the cosmos, vast and patient, allows us to observe without hurry, returning the night once more to silence. Tonight the universe whispers again, but now the whisper feels complete, not because every question has been answered, but because the questions themselves have found a place to rest. This is the final stage of the journey where observation softens into understanding, and understanding dissolves gently into acceptance. What remains is not a conclusion, but a wider horizon. 3 Atlas continues on its path, moving steadily away from our star, its brightness thinning as distance grows its presence, slowly returning to the background of countless points of light. In cosmic time, its visit was brief. In human awareness, it felt expansive, not because it demanded belief, but because it invited attention, patience, and humility in equal measure. What stays with us is not any single anomaly, not the colour, not the brightness, not the improbable alignment, but the process itself. Telescopes turned without haste, data accumulated without drama. Silence was allowed to remain silence. This is science at its most honest, not as a search for confirmation, but as a practice of careful listening. Throughout this passage, no law was broken. Gravity held, orbits remained faithful, entropy unfolded as it always does. And yet within those familiar rules, variation emerged, reminding us that knowing the framework of nature is not the same as knowing every expression it can take. The universe does not need to defy itself to surprise us. It only needs to reveal a corner we have not yet explored. Listener. There is something deeply human in this encounter. We are a species capable of imagining extremes, yet also capable of restraint. We ask vast questions, but we can learn to wait for their answers without forcing them into shape. The cosmos does not reward impatience. It responds to consistency, to long attention, to humility before scale. Whether 3i ATLAS proves to be entirely natural or something that stretches our definitions, the outcome carries the same quiet truth. We are not spectators standing outside the universe. We are participants within it. The same atoms that compose distant dust clouds compose us. The same forces that guide interstellar paths also guide the slow turning of our own planet through night and day. There is comfort in recognizing this connection. Not comfort born of certainty, but comfort born of belonging. To look outward is not to escape ourselves. It is to remember where we come from and how deeply we are woven into the fabric we study. Future researchers will return to this data. They will place it beside other visitors yet to come. Patterns will emerge slowly, not from one object, but from many. From accumulation comes context. From context comes insight. This is how astronomy advances, not through single revelations, but through patient layering of understanding. Some anomalies will fade as models improve. Others will remain quiet markers of complexity. Both outcomes are valuable. Science grows not only by explaining, but by learning which questions are worth carrying forward. Dreamer, this moment does not belong to fear or triumph. It belongs to wonder, to the realization that the universe is vast enough to remain mysterious and ordered enough to be studied. That truth and uncertainty are not rivals, but companions traveling the same long road. As nights continue and attention shifts elsewhere, Atlas will fade from easy reach. It will become a calculation again, a line in an archive, a point of reference in future work. Yet its passage will linger not as an answer, but as a reminder of how we chose to observe. Calmly, carefully, without rushing the cosmos to speak louder than it wished. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying the memory of another stellar system through the dark indifferent to being named, measured, or remembered. It follows gravity, it sheds light, it continues. And here beneath the quiet sky, we do the same. We observe, we wonder, we rest. It is all right to let the questions soften now. It is all right to let the data sleep. The universe does not forget its paths. Sleep traveller. The cosmos remembers. The journey quiets here not because the mystery has ended, but because we have followed it as far as this moment allows. For a brief passage of time, we watched an object from another star reveal behaviours that challenged expectation, patience, and certainty. And in doing so, it reminded us how small our answers still are compared to the questions we carry. Traveller. What we witnessed was not a conclusion, but a pause in a much longer story. Whether 3i Atlas proves to be an unfamiliar expression of nature, or something that reshapes our understanding entirely, the universe remains vast, alive, and unfinished. It does not rush to explain itself. It whispers, waits, and invites those willing to listen. There is humility in this kind of watching. We build instruments, gather light measure photons that have travelled unimaginable distances, and still we are guests in a cosmos that owes us nothing. Yet somehow it allows us to look That alone is extraordinary. Science and wonder meet here in the quiet space between knowing and not knowing. Time stretches, silence speaks, and the stars continue their patient motion indifferent yet deeply connected to us. If this story found you tonight, you may stay for the next. Rest gently beneath the same sky, stay curious,